welcome back to Spill the Word. We are back and excited to finish up on what we talked about last week, the Abrahamic covenant. Last week we talked about the land blessing, and this week we're going to talk about the descendant or the blessing of descendants, and then the blessing that flows through, or the promise of descendants, and then the blessing that flows through that promise. So how are you doing today?
That sounds good. Just a little late this morning. Got into a little fender bender with a cop.
How did that
Claiming that it is his fault, though.
He says it's his fault. He admitted guilt?
No, he did not admit guilt.
Oh.
And now looking back, I kept saying sorry, and maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Oh, yeah,
but
can
I just
never.
meant sorry.
Yeah,
You know,
sorry this happened. Not that it was my fault.
Exactly. I'm sorry for everyone in this situation.
Yeah.
There was a wreck, and I was looking that way to make sure that I could go around it, that I was in the right spot. And I'm real high, way up here. I can barely, this is how I see through the window. And I guess he was beside me, and he was trying to cut over to go to the wreck.
Yeah.
But why would I think that someone in this lane is turning left? And he didn't have his sirens on either.
Oh, wow.
And so he was like, well, did you not see me? And so I took a picture while I was sitting there to show him.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, well, this gives us a good thing to take back to the city to tell them, see, we need to be more visible.
Wow.
Yeah. So look at me. I'm just out here changing lives.
You are. Well, that's so funny that you say that, because I tell Jake all the time when I get in wrecks, which is like once every 2 or 3 months.
Sure.
And not all of them are wrecks. Some of them, like, it'll be me hitting my garage side of it.
Just little fender benders.
Yeah. Or, it has gotten me so many times. Well, curbs. I've popped so many tires.
Those don't count.
Yeah. But the other thing, when you're like coming out of a parking garage and there's those big boxes that are on the ground. I don't know. Maybe they have something electrical in them.
Yeah.
I have hit 2 of those.
Yeah.
And they've totally taken out my tires.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I told him I couldn't see out of the car, and he just, I don't think, took it seriously.
Oh, okay.
But now that you're saying that and you took that picture.
Oh, I'll send it to you.
No,
so you can show Jake.
I'm going to show him that, because.
Well, and it's just funny because I just got rid of my old car because I had beat that one up, ran into things, what have you, and was like, I'm going to treat this one better. And again, this was not my fault.
Right. Yeah.
But Justin just last week was like, because he got a new car, and he was like, I really think we need to trade this one in and get you something smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no.
Yeah.
He was like, I don't think you know how to
drive this
big car.
I know. And both of us are like 5'2", and then my other friend, who's also 5'2", is like, just last month she hit someone's car in a shopping center.
Yeah.
And then she was driving down just like a random neighborhood street and accidentally hit a sitting car.
I'm sorry. I've done that before too.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. But the streets in the city of Dallas, they need to be widened.
Yeah.
And I will die on that hill. Now that I'm in the burbs, let me tell you what.
The streets
are as wide as the day is long.
Well, yeah. And I mean, sometimes I even will catch myself, I have to put my mirrors in. Like, that's as narrow of a space that I have.
I feel like whenever I'm driving, through the streets or whatever, I feel constantly like I'm oops, my bad.
Yeah.
My goodness. So anyways, that's where we are this morning.
I'm sorry that you have got to be like a little flustered.
Yeah, that's okay. We're all good. Everyone's good. Me, the city of Dallas.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you got that proof and intel to take to the city so that the police can take to just.
Yeah, they need to be safe too.
Yeah.
They should be driving around these tiny little crash cars.
Right. No, it's not safe for them. Okay. So
anyways, we've got a lot.
Yeah, we've got to, and we're late, so we better get going.
Yes, and we're late. Yeah.
Okay. So we're talking about the descendants promise. And Abraham and Sarah was barren their whole marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And all she wanted was a child. And, after years and years of trying, she had pretty much given up.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, God comes to Abraham and promises him that they are going to have a child, and that through that child, they're going to have as many descendants as the stars in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And so Abraham goes to Sarah and tells her this, what's going to happen. And she's a little, skeptical of it, but she's like, okay. So they come to the land that God has promised them. And once they get there, they realize that this huge famine's going on. There is no food to be found. So they're like, God, this is the promised land. It's not showing us much promise. So they decide.
Promises where?
Yeah. Where are the promises? So they leave. They head to Egypt to try to get some food. And once they get there, Abraham's like, hey, Sarah, why don't you tell Pharaoh that you're my sister because, you're a hot little number and he is going to be interested in you. And I don't want to have to deal with that. If you tell him you're my sister, then things will go well for me, which I feel like is a little shady.
Yeah.
Like basically you lie, say you're my sister and, TBD on what happens to you, but things will go well for me. So that's where we are. And I was just thinking about that. And I was thinking about how that reminds me of like times in our life when we feel like God is telling us to go in a certain direction or to do something. And then when we start to go down that path, we feel like obstacles keep getting in our way. And we start to just question like, God, was that really you? Or is this me thinking that I should do this? It just, there's been so many times in my life where I've felt that way.
Yeah, for sure. I know, during the kickoff to COVID.
Yeah.
We had just, we had bought our house a little before that, and we, gutted it, took it to the studs, and we're doing a huge renovation on it. And right when we finished the renovation, we were ready to move in. So it was literally like the day after everything shut down for COVID, and it was like only, mandatory workers were able to do stuff and all that. We moved in that next day. And so it just kind of felt like, leading up to that, I had really been praying, for God to lead us to, number one, the right house, a place that was going to be a good financial investment for us, number one, a place that was going to be safe for our family. Not that the area wasn't safe, but just, a safe place for us, a good place for our family. And so we, spend all this money renovating it. And then I get furloughed the day before we move in. And during that time, so many people were losing their jobs. And so lenders were having to call and check in with companies and whatever, just to make sure that you still had the funds to, pay the mortgage.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, I've lost my job, or I was furloughed. And then soon after I got furloughed, Justin was just kind of going through some things at work and weighing his options on kind of what he wanted to do. And so it just felt like, we had been praying about this house, and then we get in and it's like, wait, what's going on here? I thought the three of us agreed to this plan.
Yeah. Abraham, where's the promise?
Did we not?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I mean, the situation today, you're trying to come to do this podcast, spread the good word.
Spread the good word.
And you get in this accident,
Yeah.
I mean,
right. That was completely and totally not my fault. So.
Right, exactly. Okay, so where we find ourselves in the story, Abraham has, traded off his wife so that gets a good, situation going. And for his wife, he gets a bunch of livestock and camels and jewels. He gets all these gifts from Pharaoh because he basically sells him his sister. So they get to Egypt. Just as Abraham had expected, Pharaoh wants Sarah. So he's like, oh, in exchange for your sister, I'm going to give you these jewels and camels and livestock, and here are all these gifts for your sister. Thanks. So he shows up at the promised land. There's no food. He goes to Egypt to get food. He's got the next promise of descendants. He gets to Egypt. Now he has no wife. So it's like
no food, no wife.
No food, no wife, no land. All these promises are kind of unraveling, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to think about that and why, that was happening. And I think the reason is because Abraham was not trusting God.
Right.
He was trying to control the situation.
Mm-hmm.
If he would have just taken his hands off the wheel and let God, let Jesus take the wheel, as Carrie Underwood would say, then I feel like things would have gone a lot better. And so many times in our life, we know in our head that what God says is true and that
Mm-hmm.
He'll have, our best. If our best will come if we trust in Him, but it's almost like we can't help ourselves, but to just foil in,
right,
the situation. And so that really made me think like he probably could have saved himself.
Yeah, well, it's like the patience part.
Yeah,
he was trying to, like you said, take it into his own hands. Like, so after we got through COVID, and we moved on. All the the furlough debacle, the Justin switch up debacle.
Mm-hmm.
I entered into my fertility debacle.
Oh no!
So I was really struggling at that time to get pregnant with Rhodes, our second. And I was doing every last thing but going to God. I was doing literally hours of research a day. I would get into bed and Google and reread things that I had already read. I was obsessed. Like it infiltrated my every thought. My friends at the time, I'm sure, were so sick of me. I was doing all the things like taking the supplements, tracking. I was slathering my stomach with castor oil. Did you ever hear about that? It's like supposed to...
Well, I do that, but that's so that I can wake up in the morning with a flat stomach.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
and they like Amazon sells these little stickers. You can fill your belly button with castor oil and put it on top of it.
Yeah.
And then you're supposed to wake up with a flat stomach. It's 50-50.
Okay, I'll try that.
Yeah.
This was supposed to...
make the baby?
It was like supposed to stimulate the ovaries and uterus, I believe. So I would lay there with a cold castor oil on my stomach for like an hour a day. But anyways, just like I was literally going, I was doing everything. And when you are that desperate, you're literally grasping at straws, right?
Yeah.
And so around like month 6, I had come across this like Bible study for infertility. I wasn't seeking it out. It just kind of came across my desk during my daily scrolls, I'm sure. And so Justin and I started to do it together because I was like, okay, what, like, something's got to give. I'm going to try this out now. And so we started doing it. And I also started keeping a prayer journal at that time. And it really started to change, I feel like, my heart and my mind. And I really started to like place my trust in Him and just know that He knew the deepest desires of my heart. He knew how much I wanted this second child. And there was no amount of Googling that was going to make me feel better or change the outcome of, what was happening. And so during that time, we were also church hunting, and we had gone to one of the church on our lists like one Sunday. And this church was like kind of wild. But kind of like we were there during worship, and I was almost like, maybe we should just like get west. And
why?
I don't know. It was super intense, and I'm used to that. Like I grew up in that kind of church, but it was a little different. But anyways, I bet
Justin was like, let's get the heck out of here.
Yeah. He was just waiting for me to say the word go, and he's like,
yeah.
But anyways, we stayed, and the pastor started preaching, and the message that Sunday was on the story about Rachel and her barrenness and her deep sorrow not being able to, bear children. And, so that's what the sermon was about. And, how in Genesis it goes on to say, then God remembered her and opened her womb. And I used to sit in church, and when pastors would be like, I know this message is for someone here today, I would kind of be like, okay, like,
yeah.
I'm sure that it is, but like, it just felt a little, whatever.
Right.
But like that day, that message was for me.
Yeah.
A church we had never been to, And this is what he was preaching on. It was so specific to what I was going through. And it really just gave me like such great peace that I walked away really holding on to those words that God remembered her.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that makes me think about what we talked about the other week when we like can be, we can be judgy of people who, as a Christian, so many Christians are judgmental of people who aren't Christians or who are, living a sinful lifestyle, even though we all are, we just sin in different ways.
Yeah.
But we can be judgmental of that, but also we can be judgmental of our Christian brothers and sisters, and how we talked about a couple of weeks ago, how sometimes when, we'll roll our eyes at situations like that, like this is for someone in the room, or we think someone's or they're weird because they're a little too, I don't know, what would the word be?
Yeah, I know.
Like I don't want to say too holy, but just like you unrelatable maybe.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it's just a reminder that kind of we don't need to put ourselves above anybody or really judge, because the Lord, he can use anyone, any church to speak to us.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we need to keep our hearts and minds open to receiving that, because sometimes we can get in our own way by just shutting down or thinking something stupid or so different that we don't want to be a part of it,
Yes.
So I don't know, that you saying that just made me think about that.
Yeah.
Okay. So oftentimes we will trade in God's promises for something that's more convenient or more controllable. But here is the incredible thing. Just because we move, God doesn't move. If he makes a promise, then he's going to keep it. So Sarah is in Pharaoh's house, and all of a sudden, all of these plagues start happening. And Pharaoh's like, what on earth have you done? You've cursed me. Get this lady out of my house. And while you're at it, keep all the stuff that I gave you, because I just want zero part of everything you've got going on. So Abraham gets to leave with his wife with all the extra camels and cattle, the jewels or gold. He
said the painting was a gift, Todd. I'm taking the painting with me.
Yeah. So he leaves. And, Pharaoh is just trying to pick up the pieces to this disaster. And he really didn't do anything. He was lied to, deceived.
Yeah, right.
So sometimes it doesn't seem fair, but, God's children sometimes get preferential treatment, I guess.
Yeah.
So Abraham lies, Pharaoh suffers, Abraham walks away with more than he had to start with. And this shows us that God's faithfulness is not dependent on us, it's dependent on him. So that doesn't mean that there are not consequences, because the Bible doesn't tell us directly, about this story, what the consequences were. But if you think about it, the situation that happens later on with Hagar, so that it could be a result of this whole situation. So what happens with Hagar? Sarah's still in her waiting period. God tells, her this when she's in her 70s or 60s, actually. And then now here she is in her 90s, still no child. So,
yeah, I mean, oh my gosh. That's patience.
A lot. Also, something that I want to just bring to the forefront is when Pharaoh took Sarah into his house because, she was so good looking, she was like 65 years old.
Yeah.
And that's pre-Botox, like any kind of face. And she's living out in that dried desert.
Yeah.
Like,
wow.
Yeah. I mean, props to her.
Yeah. Drop the skincare, girl.
Yeah. She was probably washing her face with those Dead Sea salts.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Just getting lit up. I bet she had a glow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Gotta get some of those.
Anyway, so Hagar, she's like, well, maybe God meant that Abraham would have a son, but just not through me. So she tells Abraham that he needs to sleep with Hagar and that they're going to get the son that God promised through her.
And because she was one of the gifts
from Pharaoh
that Pharaoh had given Abraham.
Yeah. So if, maybe that they would have never lied and concocted that whole scheme, then they wouldn't have had Hagar prancing around, and then, the light bulb wouldn't have gone off in Sarah's head to impregnate her. I don't know. But so she gets pregnant. She has a son. Then once she gets pregnant, all of a sudden Sarah's ticked because she starts thinking that Hagar's thinking that she's above her. So Sarah starts being really rude to Hagar, and Hagar flees. She's in the desert. An angel of the Lord comes to her and says, you need to go back. You're going to have a son. I'm going to bless him as well. You're going to call him Ishmael. He's going to be a bucking bronco of a man, and he's going to be at constant war with his relatives. So, that's just a little foreshadowing of what's to come. So this human effort that's trying to accomplish divine promise just doesn't work. It creates exactly what you would expect: jealousy, pain, tension. And I feel like this happens pretty much always when we divert from God's plan and take matters into our own hands. So Hagar, that little gift from Pharaoh, she gets pregnant. She begins to look down on Sarah. Sarah responds harshly. Hagar runs away, but God meets her there. He sees her and he cares for her. And he sends her back with the promise of a son, Ishmael, who will become a great nation. But the damage has already been done. The conflict continues, and Hagar and Ishmael are eventually sent away. And what started as a moment of impatience, a moment of maybe I should handle this on my own or take it into my own hands, turns into generations of tension between two families. All because there was a struggle to trust in God. So there have been many situations in my life that I've stepped into trying to help God. Right. And trying to speed things up or trying to control the outcome. And in the process, I have created so many complications for myself that didn't have to be there.
Right. Yeah. I completely agree. I think for me, it's really when anxiety starts and then it starts to snowball, and then we start overthinking, and then fear enters the chat. And then once that fear grabs a hold of you, it is so hard to climb out of, and it could start with the smallest thing, like the smallest nothing burger.
Yeah.
But it just takes over, and it's really difficult. What about you?
Yeah. Well, one of the hardest times in my life, and I know that this may seem like not much to some people, but it was a time in my life where I really remember fear gripping me more than it ever has before. And I've had in my life a lot of things happen that I think most people would...
It would break them.
Yeah, it would break them.
Same.
Yeah. And to me, I have just, I get, it was God, I've just kind of...
I also think a part of it is just putting your head down and going through it. You've got to keep going.
Yeah. And there have been things that have happened that I've kind of, just battled through and come out the other side okay. But this particular thing, it really shook me, and it shook me for about a year. It was right when I had my first child, Emerson. I had been married for about 2 years, and my marriage was, all over the map, just not in a good spot. We were not planning on having kids anytime soon. I didn't even know if our marriage was going to last.
Right.
And I find out that I'm pregnant, and I was so scared about that because I just had no idea what to expect. Also, all of my friends were still single, going out, doing stuff.
You got married young.
Yeah.
Or younger than.
Yes. And so I'm married, and now I'm about to have a kid. I have nobody to reference,
Yeah.
So I end up having her. And when I went into it, just because my whole life I've never really stressed about anything, I just kind of thought I'll have the baby and everything will be fine. And I'll bring her home. Well, literally right after I had her, fear gripped me and it took hold. And I'd never experienced anything like this before. And all that I can think that it was is just that I had never loved something or somebody so much. And when I thought about how much I loved her, it was a love that was so big that it hurt.
Yes.
Yeah. It hurt me and made me so uncomfortable because I feel like at that point in my life, I had put up so many walls my whole life. The only person who I ever let in was my mom. And she was, not even my husband. I had just walls up so high. And here comes this little baby and I have no control. She shatters everything in an instant.
Right.
And so here I am with this baby that I'm responsible for. And my mom's like, oh, I'm going to spend the night and, a couple of nights and I'll help you or whatever. And that first night I remember, and this was like during the time when you absolutely had to breastfeed. Like basically if you were going to give your kid formula, they told you that it was like you're poisoning your kid, back like 13 years ago. There was that whole, I don't know, like.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
I guess I had kids much later. So
yeah, so
I feel
it's
like my experience was very much like, ew, why are you breastfeeding?
Yeah, well, no,
Can't you afford formula?
Yeah, all the nurses were just like, you really need to breastfeed. Like,
yeah.
And so I felt this huge pressure. My milk would not come in. And I remember that first night getting home, and she was little when she was born. And so I got home and I was trying to nurse her at the hospital, trying to nurse her at home, and it just wasn't really working. And she's screaming her head off, and my mom was in the next room. And I just remember crying and taking her to my mom and being like, I can't do this, just take her. And I went back into my room and I just cried all night long.
Yeah.
And then I didn't even sleep. And the next morning I got up and I told my mom, I'm like, you have to go because I'm going to count on you too much. And I have to figure out how to do this on my own. So my mom leaves. And then for literally the next 6 months, every single night at 6:00, when I knew it was getting close to bedtime and it was going to be me alone with her, I would just cry.
Oh, yeah.
I was so
it's
depressed.
Like that impending doom.
Yes. And I would,
know what the night holds?
Yeah, I knew. And I was just so sad because I felt so alone.
Yeah.
And I don't know. So, and then, once she hit 6 months, she's a little stronger, things get better, but still my just fear of any kind of illness or somebody not washing their hands before touching her, or even her getting overstimulated and then not being able to take her nap.
Right.
And I went by the most like rigorous cutthroat like schedule. There's no, because that was like my lifeline, the schedule.
Oh, same.
Yeah. And so I don't think in those moments that I turned to God much at all.
Right.
I relied on my schedule. I relied on myself. And because of that, I felt so alone.
Yeah.
And so I think to myself, like, there are so many precious moments that I missed out on with my, sweet first baby because I let fear cripple me.
Yeah.
And, I had 2 more kids after that, and it was so different.
Right.
Because that fear wasn't there, and I was able to enjoy things.
Well, you were able to like control things, or you felt that you were able to control things more because you already knew what was coming.
Right.
It's so hard to like put your trust in God when you have no idea what's on the other side waiting for you.
Yeah.
It's easier to trust in God when you've gone through it before and you're like, oh, I know, like you've got me.
Yeah.
We've done this before.
Yeah.
And
isn't it funny how like all these things can happen, these crazy things in your life, and people would think that those would be the things that would knock you down. And then something that comes, out of left field, so unexpected is what takes you out.
Yes.
I mean, I'll never forget those times and those nights and those moments where I just let fear control me. And it hasn't, happened since, not in that kind of way.
Right.
And I hope that I learned enough through that situation to where it wouldn't. But yeah, it just trying to control things ourselves it's never going to turn out the way that we want. We got to let God do his thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so God still fulfills his promise. And because God told Abraham that his descendants would be many and that through him all the nations would be blessed, He wasn't just talking about physical descendants. He was pointing forward to something much bigger. In this story, God takes what seems impossible and uses it to bring blessing to the entire world. So let's get to the blessing part of the covenant. In Genesis 18:18, the Bible tells us that through Abraham, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. And we see this repeated over and over again throughout Genesis, and then echoed in the Psalms and all throughout Isaiah as well. So this promise was never just about one family or one nation. It was always pointing to something bigger. And then we get to the New Testament, and Galatians 3:16 says, Now the promises were spoken to Abraham and to his seed. He does not say, and two seeds, as referring to many, but rather to one, and to your seed. That is Christ. Mm-hmm. So what we see in this is the promise to Abraham was ultimately pointing to Jesus. It was pointing to the gospel all along. And we've talked about this before in the podcast, that Jesus was not an afterthought. He was there at creation, and he was the plan from the beginning. But so many things had to happen first. We had to see how broken we really are, and we had to see how incapable of following God's perfect law that we are. And we had to see how over and over again humanity would fail. Mm-hmm. And it's all recorded in Scripture so that today you and I can open our Bible and see ourselves in the story. We can see our patterns, our struggles, and our failures. Because when you really see how far things fall apart, that's when you begin to understand how much we need rescue. And that's why we need Jesus. He is our sacrificial lamb. The blessing to the nations was never about land or people. It was about Jesus and stepping into our brokenness to save us.
The end.
Yeah.
No, I love that. And a good recap on the Abrahamic covenant. So next week, we're going to dive into the new covenant with Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus as the main character.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Shifting from Abraham to Jesus. And so I feel like this is good backstory.
Yeah.
So remember it for next week.
Yep. See you then.
See you then.
Bye.